And I'll be turning a mic on like on the lights on the podium. So
Okay.
They're already on.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm fine. I'll roll with it, Ellen. Thanks. Awesome, guys. Thanks. Is it 7? Should we go ahead and get started? Let there be light, right? Good job, guys. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ann LePage, and I'm the coordinator for college counseling here at Glenbrook South. And we are thrilled to be able to combine with our sister school, Glenbrook North, and my partner from north of Willow Road, David Boyle, to offer our college financing night for senior parents. We decided a couple years ago to split these programs up and have a program just for the senior parents, and then later on, in fact, many of you probably attended it last spring in March, we worked with the junior parents. Because this explaining about 2 different sessions and how to attend those in a couple minutes. But in the meantime, welcome to South, and welcome to our evening. We are so fortunate to have our partners from the college side here too, the experts in financial aid. So we're going to let you know what we planned this night, as you all know, a couple weeks ago, and then we had the mini polar vortex, which caused us to have to cancel and reschedule our evening. And even though early is the name, and it would have been very early had we got you all started on this about a week and a half ago, it still is plenty early to get started on this process right now. But if you're anything like I am, and I'm going through this process in my household also, you would probably serve yourself well to go home very soon after this program, tonight, tomorrow night, and actually get to action on this. And so we're encouraging you to do that. We also are setting up some programs, which we'll explain in a couple of minutes, that will help you if you need some additional help beyond this evening. Colleges will panic you a little bit about early deadlines for FAFSA completion. And I heard one today from a parent who said, I need some answers real quick because we get a $500 bonus if we get our FAFSA filed by, February 1st. I went, well, that's really only if you attend there, but that's great. But it is, it seems to be a frenzy, and I would be willing to bet that most of you have not done your taxes yet. Is that correct? Right. And what you will learn tonight from both of our sessions, that doesn't matter. You can still move forward very productively in this process, even though you have not completed your taxes. And I think both of our speakers will recommend that you do that and not wait until your taxes are complete for this process. So early is the name of the game. The whole concept of keeping up with the costs of college, I'm sure, has most of you overwhelmed. That's why you dedicated 2 different nights in your calendar to be able to come to the school to learn more about this process. And we agree, it is overwhelming. I don't care what your family's financial situation is, to look at $20 to $50 or more $1,000 going out of your household at a yearly basis is overwhelming. And so I sometimes will joke with kids and they'll say, I don't know if I should apply for this. I don't know if I have financial need. And I just challenge them to go home and ask their parents if they have any financial need. Because, you know, when you're looking at those dollar costs, it's very, very intimidating at times. And so the cost of a college education has gone up in proportion a lot more than most other things in our economy right now. And so everyone needs to have a full awareness of the possibilities for assistance in this, and through either the federal or state financial aid that's there available, or through self-help, things that you can do yourself to get in a better position to be able to afford, which will be a valuable experience. The other piece around this that we really, the high schools, North and South, really encourage you to do is communicate with your kids around this process. Because oftentimes, I think as adults, we keep kind of some of the financial picture of our households from our kids. You know, they say, well, how much do you make, Mom? And we don't tell them, right? Or they maybe aren't a party to maybe the hardships that have happened in your household for the last few years because of either downturns in the economy, loss of jobs, etc. But at this particular point, when the stakes are, you know, the differences in the kinds of schools that they'll be selecting, it is important, I think, to have some open communication in your households. Your kids are almost adults. It's time for them to understand where the limits are, you know, and what your expectations are around this moving forward. And so we encourage you to do that. We certainly can help you if you need help with that, but it is very harsh sometimes to keep those messages until late in the process when kids are in the decision-making point about where to go, and you may not be feeling like you can afford that. So it's time to maybe have some open and upfront communications around this process. We can help. As a school, we're very well equipped to be able to help with some of your questions around the FAFSA. When it gets real sophisticated, we are very well equipped to call someone who knows, okay? And we're more than happy to do that. But in addition to you working with your own counselors in your own schools, with the college counselors in each of the schools, we are going to provide additional evenings. And so this is just, this will be on our website. It'll also be on the website at Glenbrook North, but we're going to offer beyond this information. If you still need some additional help in completing a FAFSA, at Glenbrook South, we'll have our FAFSA completion night on Thursday, February 5th. It'll be from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and we'll hold it in our Glenbrook South Library. It's going to be a walk-in, kind of just a drop-in, if you will, lab. We'll have the computers all ready to go for families to be able to come in and actually complete the process from start to finish, get your FAFSA submitted. You can print your results and go home with some confidence that that's done and off your plate. Glenbrook North is doing the same thing the night before us on February 4th from 5 to 7 in their library, where there will be some assistance for this process. At Glenbrook South, we are going to have resources for families in both Spanish language and Korean language if you need translation. I'm not sure, do you need any, or will you have translators or anything available? No. Okay. So, but we know that that's been a need in our building, and so we will have those options available. So, kind of what does tonight look like? So you have a copy of the schedule, what this evening is, and we really have planned 2 different programs for this evening. In the auditorium, we're going to have Mr. Jerry Zerbinski, who is a 22 veteran in financial aid at Lake Forest College. He's currently the vice president for financial aid at Lake Forest, and he's going to really give you the nuts and bolts of what you're going to do in the next few days, and that is complete those FAFSAs. And so his session, completing the forms, you'll get, again, you'll walk out of here with confidence. You not only will be able to complete yours, you'll be able to help your neighbor complete theirs, okay? So if you've never done a FAFSA before, this is your first child going off to school, you absolutely, I think, want to stay in the auditorium for this. Or if you did it before and you thought it's kind of a blur now, and you think I need a refresher on that, this would be a good session to stay in. In our Student Activities Center, which is just down the hall here, and Mr. Classen can help you get down there to the next session. Ruth Pusich is the veteran financial aid administrator at Elmhurst College, and she will be conducting a session kind of on the everything you ever wanted to know about financial aid. And so typically families that find this session helpful are either those that have been through the process before and just want to know, is there anything new going on? Is there anything that I need to be updated about? Anything that is outside of what maybe the typical process has been. And she will also, I think, be appealing to those families that say, you know what, we have filled out a FAFSA before, or we don't feel like we're going to maybe qualify for any need-based aid, and we are wondering, you know, what's our next steps? It's still, and have questions about that affordability of college. So the good news is that both of these sessions are being taped through the process. You will be able to access the PowerPoints and also the verbal parts of these presentations from our website and also Glenbrook North's website after the program. So if you're here by yourself and you're like, wait a minute, I think I want both of those sessions, pick one, attend it, learn about it, and then you can watch the other one. Probably tomorrow we'll be able to get them posted up on our website. If you are here as a couple, if you have, you know, both parents here, I would suggest you split. And, you know, one go to each one and compare notes afterward. After both sessions, our speakers have been very generously agreed to answer any questions that you might have, and they're both equipped to answer the whole range of questions that you might have. And so without kind of further introduction, I'm going to invite those of you that feel you would benefit from going to our session that will be held in the SAC. You can exit. Actually, Mr. Boyle's back there. He will take you down to our SAC. He's closer. And I will turn the microphone over to Jerry, who will do everything you needed to know about the FAFSA, but we're afraid to ask. That's your first slide, right?
Yeah, perfect.
You did it twice. Did you get two different pins? And
Do you know what the other session is? I missed the intro.
Pardon me?
What is everyone going to? And what's that
There's
option?
another session about understanding the process, what student loans are like, financial aid packages, all sorts of different things.
Okay.
This is
just
focused on just the
FAFSA.
FAFSA form
Okay.
itself.
she did one FAFSA and then made her.
If you never submitted it, then it's just sitting out there and nothing will ever happen to it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Feel free to move a little closer if you'd like to, or if you can't see.
Why not? You know, that's, if you're comfy, that's fine by me. Thanks for staying for this part of this breakout session. My name is Jerry Sabrinsky. I'm the Associate Vice President for Financial Aid at Lake Forest College. I've been doing that for 22 years. I was at DePaul University for 10 years before that. I love what I do. I love sharing this wonderful, exciting, you know, sexy world of financial aid with you guys. Our focus, actually, for this session right now, for the next 3 hours, is going to focus really on the free application for federal student aid, that form. That's the application that every family is completing for every college, every university across the country. That starts the process. That starts a conversation, you know, in the financial aid office and the admissions office to kind of get a sense of who may or may not qualify for additional financial aid and kind of what your next steps are after that. As Ms. LePage said, I'll answer any questions that you have, you know, throughout these slides, kind of do an overview of what you'll see when you go online. You may have filled out a FAFSA already or be in the middle of filling out a FAFSA. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask me. And I'll be able to stick around for a couple minutes afterwards too. So if you have any kind of specific questions you want to ask me. But again, I mentioned that the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA, has been around for a while. It's been around for decades. It's always been the application that has started the process. What it does is collect enough basic demographic and financial information from a family to generate kind of an index number of sorts. It literally is called right now the expected family contribution. You'll see it called EFC, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's your out-of-pocket. It truly is kind of a misnomer. It's more of an index number that tells us where a family might fall on the continuum of everyone applying for financial aid, all the different financial aid programs out there, whether you absolutely qualify for federal aid or you don't, but you might get something from the state, or you might absolutely get something from the institution, the college, university itself. So it's kind of the start of the process. In many cases, at many colleges, there are supplemental financial aid applications because the FAFSA is good enough. But you can't color outside the lines or stream of consciousness or anything like that. It's only through the use of an additional, what we call supplemental financial aid application, where you really get to tell us what's going on in your life. We want to know that because we really want to personalize the response to you. We want to kind of tailor make our response back to you by taking any kind of circumstances that you have into consideration before we make any decisions. There's a common financial aid application out there called the College Scholarship Service Financial Aid Profile. There are a little under 400 colleges that require that application. They require it because they have a lot of funds that they can offer, but this helps them really figure out who needs them the most, and it really maximizes a family's financial aid eligibility. But if a college doesn't use the profile, they may have their own standalone application that allows you to address some of the circumstances, whether there's a loss of income or medical expenses that insurance didn't cover, or all sorts of things that we can recognize and we do recognize in this process, but we need to collect it in a separate way, either through the use of the profile or the supplemental financial aid application from college itself. Truly, because special circumstances matter in this process a lot. For example, at Lake Forest College, of all the applications that we see, over 60% of those have additional information that they provide to us, through the use of our standalone application. So then we can literally go into the FAFSA and kind of tweak some of that information to modify, to take these other circumstances into consideration, whether it's a loss of income or support to extended family members or emergency home repairs, all sorts of different things that we can recognize before we give you an answer. Throughout this process too, I'm passionate about this. I can't tell you enough about deadlines are huge these days. Doing this for over 30 years, we've come from the days of soft or preferential deadlines, priority dates, saying you get it in by February 1, you're golden. February 15th, you're good. I mean, you're pushing it, but gone are those days, and now we have drop dead days. Or if colleges tell you that they have a deadline for you getting all of your financial aid materials in by February 15th, they really mean February 15th and not like 12:01 a.m. on February 16th. They do that because we know how many applicants we'll have, we know how many dollars we have, and so we know that we have to set these deadlines. So, which is why I like having this, again, as Ann mentioned, it's not too late. This was scheduled for a few weeks ago, but it's still not too late to be aware of some of the deadlines out there, not only for financial aid, but for some of the scholarship programs and some of the admission programs out there still. The FAFSA form itself, as we kind of get into that application, it's available now. It became available on February 1st. It's 7 steps long. It asks kind of parallel information, which we'll see, for the parent and the student. I mentioned it starts with the demographic information, the identifying information, student's name, social security number, date of birth, asks a little bit about the parents as well. It's signed and submitted electronically. So you actually apply for, and maybe you've done this already, but you apply for a PIN, personal identification number, just for this purpose. You can do that. If you haven't done that yet, you can do that tonight, as soon as you get home. The application, the FAFSA, is signed by the student and the parent. Only one parent needs a PIN. If it's, if there are 2 parents and you both have one, that's wonderful, but only one of you needs to put the PIN on there. But every student needs their own PIN as well in this process. As you go through applying for the the PIN, it actually, it takes whatever PIN you want to create yourself, whatever 4-digit PIN you create, or it randomly assigns you a 4-digit PIN. It can be the same. If you want to easily remember, it can be the same for the parent and the student. Because it's tied in with different identifying information, it makes no difference. And suggestions we've gotten over the years from families are, it's just, because the parent and the student need to sign it, why not use the same PIN? That's fine. It doesn't matter one way or the other, or change it, up for each one if you want. The FAFSA on the web, the electronic version, is truly the way to go. There is a paper FAFSA still, if you wanted to go that route, but you need to order that from the Department of Ed. It takes a few weeks to get that. And then if you submit that by paper, it can take 6 to 8 to 12 weeks to be processed. So truly, it's not the way to go, especially when we're looking at colleges that have very early deadlines. There's just no way. So the FAFSA on the web truly is the application that you want to do. This has become so much better, leaps and bounds over the years that it has been around. It's available at a website called FAFSA.gov, which is not to be confused with FAFSA.com. FAFSA.com is a proprietary site that, I think for the low fee of only $159, it will collect the same data from you, plug it into the FAFSA form, and then send that off to the federal student aid programs. We don't recommend that. I don't think you need that at all. When I did a FAFSA completion workshop last year, and I was helping one of the students, and I went to the PC she was on and looked at the pages she was looking at. It was like, that looks familiar, but it's slightly different than what it should be. She just Googled FAFSA, and then FAFSA.com was the first thing that came up because that was the sponsored ad. So just be careful with that. FAFSA.gov is the site you want to go to. It's available in a couple languages right now, English and Spanish. They keep telling us they'll add more languages. We haven't seen that yet, but eventually there will be some. It's got a couple features that, if you're used to doing stuff online, filling out applications or just submitting information online, there's one thing called skip logic. It's nice because as you go through and answer the questions, if the next 5 don't pertain to you, you don't even see them, which is wonderful. Speeds the process up, and it helps us on our end when we get the results and we see blanks in some areas. We know that if you did the electronic version, you could not have answered those questions. So we don't have to follow up. We don't have to ask you if you meant to put 0, maybe not applicable. We just know that that was not an option for you. So I really like the skip logic. You'll find that that will speed up the process for you a lot. Online editing feature is nice because it just kind of keeps you on track. Make sure that you save this periodically, that you're putting kind of appropriate answers in the questions. If it's asking for a number and trying to put a yes or no in there, it will just kind of stop you. If you're using decimal points, one of the things that it will tell you that it just wants any numbers that you report rounded. So do not use decimals. If you put a decimal in there, it will error out and just kind of tell you no, just kind of round it up to the next dollar. I mentioned that you sign it electronically with the PIN. If you don't want to apply for the PIN tonight, you can actually wait until you're in the FAFSA form itself and apply for a PIN at that point. I don't recommend that because if you apply for the PIN now, it gives it time to be authenticated, which means it gets matched up with your identifying information. If you apply for the PIN in the middle of the FAFSA, you can use it, but it will keep the application in suspense for about 24 to 48 hours before it'll actually submit it. So that's why I really recommend getting the PIN tonight. That way, when you're in the middle of the FAFSA, use it and you're good to go. You'll be notified by email that the FAFSA form has been processed and sent to the different schools. The tricky part with emails, and this is kind of a hot topic these days at colleges, is there are 2 email addresses that are asked for on the FAFSA, the student and the parent. It doesn't matter, if you can put the same one in each, we don't care. We get that information at college. The hot topic these days is how will the parents be notified of, or how be kept in the loop when a lot of colleges are very conservative when it comes to privacy issues and FERPA. They take it to the extent where they only communicate with the students. So even though we've got the parent email address, some colleges may not do anything with that. So a good question to ask colleges is, how will you know what's going on? Will it be an automatic thing? Does the student need to sign express written consent to keep you in the loop. I see colleges at both ends of the spectrum. We struggle all the time with effective communication, with families. And if we are just emailing, which is our primary means, if we're emailing just to students, we know that students don't check their email as often as we check our email. You might be checking email now, and that's absolutely fine. But we have to figure out a really effective way to communicate, not only with the students and the parents. Some colleges have gone to different social media, like having a Facebook page, and I don't do Facebook. My staff wanted to do a Facebook page for the office, but my thinking is that what if no one likes us? We don't have any followers. How pathetic would we be? If we had 5 and it's all staff members. Or tweeting, having a Twitter account, we have a Twitter account, but again, you have to proactively follow that. Well, we have found 2 things to be very effective, at least with our students. One, we're texting now. We're texting the student, and we're literally saying, I sent you an important email, please check it, or please come see me. And we'll text the parent too, so we'll start to collect cell phone numbers. The other thing that we do, that we've learned, is that when we do send an email, it's very succinct, to the point. One of my staff members just sent an email today for some students who need to finish the student loan process, and they've been straggling with that. Her email to them was, do you want your student loan, yes or no? Pretty effective. I mean, she sent that out to like 17 students. Within 10 minutes, she got 12 responses. Because all you have to do on the smartphone say yes or no. So a good question to ask colleges, to repeat, is kind of how will students be kept in the loop, not only with the FAFSA form, but with the information that comes after that. You're going to get a ton of information after that. As you start to kind of get in the mindset or get ready to fill out the FAFSA, some of the things that you'll want to know and need to know is, because it asks for some identifying information, it's important that social security numbers are accurate, and that the name on the Social Security card or the name on the FAFSA matches the name on the Social Security card, the date of birth. All of this stuff is matched at the federal student aid level. If I were filling out a FAFSA, I could not put Jerry Sabrinsky, I'd have to put Gerard Sabrinsky, because otherwise it would be a mismatch. It would stop the process dead in its tracks, and that error would have to be resolved. So knowing that you want to have just the identifying information, the date of birth, which you probably know, but just make sure that there are no nicknames being used on this. The second to last bullet point on here. If you're like me, I love doing stuff online, but I'm also a pretty visual person. I like filling stuff out. I like paper. The FAFSA on the web worksheet, which you were given tonight, is wonderful. That mirrors the FAFSA on the web, so you can use that literally as a worksheet, fill some stuff in, and then transfer the information online. It makes the process of filling it out online a whole lot faster. And then just some other, which we'll see in just a little bit, maybe some other kind of tax documents that you'll need to have. The general student information on there, Social Security number, citizenship status, marital status, selective service registration. This is just some of the basic stuff that it asks. There's still, and this will probably change within a year or two, but there's a throwback to the selective service question that every male, when they turned 18, had to register with selective service. We no longer have a draft, but that requirement is still in the FAFSA. We see that going away soon. It takes a while. It actually, believe it or not, takes an act of Congress to make any changes to the FAFSA form itself. So getting that through and just kind of eliminating some of these questions, so much easier to add questions than it is to eliminate. But some of those questions are out there, are on there, and need to be answered for the student. When it asks about the parent, pretty much the same kind of demographic or identifying information. It's asking you for your Social Security number, your date of birth, your last name. Not really to do anything with that, but to have that on file for the financial aid office in case we need to have it. A question I get a lot is, there's a lot of sensitive information that is submitted on the FAFSA, and doing it online is a very secure site. It's actually, the FAFSA form itself is more secure than doing your taxes online. There are more built-in security levels and encryptions. And we have to be careful with that. With Home Depot and Target and all these stories that we're hearing, Please know that, I knock wood, in all the years that FAFSA has been around, I've never seen a security breach, I've never seen a loss of data or identity theft or anything like that. So it is a very secure site, even though it's asking for some of this, very personal information. With the parents, it's also asking about, and we'll see, again, we'll see these slides, but getting a sense of what your income is, what your assets are, which does not come into play too much, and really household information. When all is said and done, the FAFSA is more income driven than anything else. So it looks at the family's income, also looks at the family size, how many people are living under the same roof, or how many people you're supporting, and how many kids that you have in college. Those are really the main variables that affect the eligibility. The federal student aid, the PIN number, this is the site, the pin.ed.gov is where you would go get it. Yeah, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, do you want them later? Or?
No, you know what, I'm okay with questions while we're in the middle of it. Yeah.
You just touched on security. You may have to repeat this so that everyone can hear my voice is going. I've completed both the CSS and I'm almost done with FAFSA. And I'm left wondering, where does all of my personal information go? I mean, banking information, social security numbers, phone numbers, everything. When we complete these forms, I don't know what the product is of entering all this information. For example, are the universities provided with a number, or are they provided all of my financial information? I don't know what the end result is.
Yeah, the question is, you're filling out all this information, you're submitting it. A couple questions: where does that go? Where is that housed? And what do the colleges get as a result? Two things: it's housed in the cloud, I suppose, like everything else. It's housed in a clearinghouse in a database at the federal student aid programs. It's kept there for 10 years, I believe, so that students can access it if they needed to. What happens on the FAFSA form is you're supplying all of the kind of the data on there. It's getting kind of summarized and stored in this clearinghouse. We get the detailed results of that. So not only do we get that summary, that index number, but we see everything that you put down on the FAFSA. We literally can see a mirror image of the FAFSA form itself. But we're the only ones who see that. The federal government collects it, but they don't do anything with it. They have no idea. They really have no idea what it means. They run it through some formulas, but it's the colleges that get that, and then we hold on to it. We don't share that with anybody else. We keep that in-house. But every college will get the same information that every college that uses the FAFSA.
Just to follow up to that, is that kept in paper records at the university, or is it kept on your servers, or do you access the federal servers and the CSS servers remotely? I'm just wondering where the data is retained.
Yeah, so at the college, the data is retained electronically. So it's retained on our server, which is then backed up periodically. Some colleges can and will download it and have a paper form to keep in the student file. But and we have a folder for every student, and that folder is kept in a fireproof file cabinet. By law, it has to be fireproof. Yeah.
So does that include social security number, date of birth?
Yeah, it includes everything.
Is the PIN for the FAFSA the same as the PIN for the profile?
No, the PIN for the FAFSA is not the same as the PIN for the profile. The FAFSA is called the Federal Student Aid PIN, which is different than applying for the profile. Now, it's a 4-digit PIN, and you have the option of creating your own. So it could be, I forget what the PIN. Yeah, it's different. Yeah, it's different. The other nice thing that you'll see on the FAFSA, and it's not glamorous, I suppose, but a nice little progress bar that kind of tells you, where you are in the process. There are these 7 steps. When you've completed one, it kind of shows you where that is. The progress bar, I love telling this because it just talk about Back to the Future. Years ago, when the FAFSA first came out, the progress bar at that time, I'm not kidding, was a little bluebird that hopped along the top of the page, and would tweet, when you got to a different section, and then these pop-up messages would come out saying, "Hey, you're halfway done. Keep going. You can do it. You're almost done, and congratulations, you submitted it." We've gone from that, which I kind of like. We've gone from that to just this kind of little static progress bar, but it is pretty straightforward, and it gives you a sense of where you are in the process. To start the FAFSA, and some of you already know, you start at FAFSA.gov and you see this entry page, and this is you click on Start a New FAFSA, quite literally, and then this is where you start to add information about who is applying for financial aid. A couple things to keep in mind. This whole process is student-centered, called student financial aid. So it's very literal on the application when it asks, like you'll see on the left-hand side there, and the blue section will always be student information. So you'll know that at this point on the application, you're putting in the student's social security number and name and date of birth. The name, social security number, and date of birth just kind of starts that record, and then you'll get to this next page that says, okay, I want to start the FAFSA form itself. And this is where you start to get into some of the detailed information of the student's address, have they lived in that state for a while, email address, you'll see that on there, driver's license number. Again, this is a lot of information that sits in the financial aid office. Yeah.
I have one daughter in school that we already have this set up, another one going next year. When I start this, does it just offer, do you want to add somebody, or do you have to do it a second time?
Good question. You fill out one FAFSA per student. So if you have 2 kids in college, you're filling out 2 FAFSAs. The nice thing, and it doesn't take a lot to excite us in a financial aid office, but there's a new feature that's relatively new. When you fill out one FAFSA and you get to the end of it and you submit it, you'll see a link that says, do you want to fill out another FAFSA? If so, it automatically transfers the parent information. So you don't have to put the parent information from scratch. You just start on this next FAFSA with just the student information. Speeds up the process a lot. Some of these questions that ask, yeah, back there. No, good question. There's a question out there that says driver's license number. If you have a driver's license number, you put that in there. If you don't, you leave it blank. There are some instances that you can leave blank, and to be perfectly honest, between us, I don't know of any college that uses that information. It's not used in the eligibility formula. The question about the driver's license, I have no idea why that's on there. I think that's one of those throwback questions as well. But I don't know. We have never used it. I don't know of any college that uses it. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, it's optional. So this page will start to figure out, kind of whether the student is a dependent or an independent student. Just goes into more detail about, are you a citizen? Are you graduating from high school? Do you have a high school diploma? This page kind of determines who is an eligible student. An eligible student is someone who's a citizen or a permanent resident who has graduated from high school or will graduate from high school, obviously, a few months from now. What kind of degree they'll be working on. The FAFSA is kind of a one-size-fits-all application, so you'll see a lot of answers. The question about what year will you be in school is a drop-down that says first bachelor's degree, second bachelor's degree, graduate student, continuing. Every student is filling this out, so you want to make sure that you're picking the appropriate answers there. Some questions, which I kind of like, kind of third from the bottom. Have you ever been convicted for the possession or sale of illegal drugs, for an offense? I'm not sure there are illegal drugs that you can ever be convicted of, but yeah. But again, some of these questions, you can't be convicted of a drug offense while receiving federal financial aid and still be eligible for federal financial aid. The question, yeah. Yep.
What is the
Good question. Yeah. The question is about deadlines for some of the colleges. The most common deadline I've seen, excuse me, for schools requesting FAFSA results is February 15th. That's a really common deadline. I see March 1 at some schools, but not as much as I used to. I'm also seeing more like January 15th and January 31st as deadlines. So those early deadlines are from schools that have early deadlines because they can and they need to, because they have a lot of applicants and a little bit of money to give out. So one of the first things you should ask or look for on a college's website are their deadlines. You know I need to fill out the FAFSA. When do you need the results on that? The other key is that when colleges have deadlines like February 15th, it truly is just for the FAFSA results. So you don't have to get all of the supporting documentation if that's needed later. It's just initially we just want to have the FAFSA results by such and such a date. Yeah.
One more question. If you're saying you've heard all the universities, do you still need to apply to the ones that you're waiting at their end?
Yes, another good question. The financial aid and the admission processes are on parallel tracks. You do not want to wait until you hear about admission before you apply for financial aid. So if your son or daughter is interested in 10 different schools and has applied to maybe 2 or 3 and maybe has heard from one but still needs to finish the application, do the FAFSA for any and every school that's in their eyesight kind of thing. So do not wait to hear. Just put all of the schools, and we'll see that in just a little bit, that he or she might be interested in. Yeah. Good question. The question is, doesn't matter which order. So that's interesting because in the media, lately in the last 6 months to the year, there have been some reports that colleges look at the order in which you list the colleges to determine your desirability. So if you're listing, and you can list up to 10 different colleges on the FAFSA form. So if Lake Forest College is on there, but we're listed as number 10, some of the reports say that, well, Lake Forest might look at that and say, well, you're not interested in us at all. We're behind 9 other schools, so we may or may not get back to you, may or may not give you any money. I think that's really far from the truth. I don't know of any college that uses the order in which the schools are listed in any way at all to determine their financial aid. What I do see on the flip side of that, I could see a college that may be listed number 10 and say, well, let's try harder to get this student. Let's see if we can convince them that we should have been number 1. So I think on the reverse, it might only help, in some cases. But we get that question a lot, and I think my answer to families is just doesn't matter. Put it alphabetical. It's always my advice is put them alphabetical for peace of mind. But to that point, new this year, when you get the FAFSA results, you'll see a little disclosure on the confirmation page from the federal student aid programs saying, oh, by the way, there are reports that some schools look at the order in which you list the colleges. I do not believe that, but it's a good question to ask. When you get to the section about listing colleges, on the online application, you can list up to 10 colleges. Technologically, I don't understand why this is an online application, why it's just not an unlimited number, but that's one of those throwback questions to the paper form, where now you can only list 4 schools, so they list 10 colleges. On average, and the reports have been that over the years, on average, FAFSA filers have listed about 6 different colleges on there, which is why they have 10 slots. When you list a college, if you need to list more than 10, it's easy enough to add, but only after the first go-round. You list 10 colleges, you submit the FAFSA, you get the results back, and then you click on a link that says, let me add school number 11, 12, 13. In the schools section part, you'll see that every college has its own unique federal school code. That's important, especially for some of the state systems like Wisconsin. University of Wisconsin-Madison versus Whitewater versus La Crosse, they all have their own unique federal school code. So you want to make sure you use that. Every college has one. Ours at Lake Forest is 001706. In case you needed to jot that down, I'm just saying, 001706. But that's the trigger. That's what sends it to our office, so that we know that you wanted this sent to Lake Forest College and not Wake Forest University. On the school section part, yeah, go ahead.
another school, do you take the other one off?
Good question. Again,
Or is it extending it more than one?
yeah, no, so it only holds 10 colleges, 10 school selections on there. So if you are adding school number 11 or 12, you're replacing one of the original 10 that was on there. You're overriding it. But we don't lose that data. We always have it in our office. So I guess, if it comes to that point, maybe look at the schools that you've listed and maybe overwrite one of the colleges that maybe not be in the running anymore. It doesn't matter to us. We'll still have it. If we need to make changes, it doesn't prevent us from doing that. The other question on school selection part asks where the student might be living while they're on campus or while they're in college. We use that to build a budget. So we know that a commuter student living at home has a different set of expenses than a student living on campus who will have actual room and board costs. Colleges will use that a lot when they send out the financial aid award letters, because that's what triggers their budgets, which then will be identified as saying, as a student living on campus, these are what your costs will be. Again, all of this information can be changed, can be adjusted at any time. If a student is looking at Lake Forest College as a commuter and says, no, I do want to live on campus, you just go back in, or you just tell us that you want to be a resident student. Colleges can make the changes on the FAFSA for you itself. Then we kind of switch gears a little bit and start to ask information about the parents. Same kinds of questions we asked about the student, demographic kind of information. You'll see it says parent on there, slightly different color, kind of a violet kind of ish color, but all of these questions pertain to the parent itself. The first question, and this is where skip logic comes into play. Your marital status. So if you're married, you'll see the two questions about both parents. You'll see parent 1 and parent 2. Father and mother labels have been taken off of the FAFSA, so now it's just parent 1 and parent 2. If you list single or divorced or widowed, only one parent. As soon as you answer that question, you get to the next question about the parent. Only one parent information will show up, because if parents are divorced or separated, only the parent with whom the student lives or has lived with the most over the last 12 months, only that one parent's information is required on the FAFSA. If a parent is remarried, then both parents, both the parent and the step-parent's information is required on there. And then you'll see both of those, parent 1 and parent 2 on there. Again, ask for the parent's email address. The last two ones on there is how many people living at home, and when it asks that, it's not only asking about people who are living under your roof, but if you've got a student in college, they're out of the house 9 months, out of 12 months, but when they come home, they're still living under your roof. You're still providing them most of their support. So really, it's anybody that you give at least half of their support. Anybody who's at least half of their support comes from the parents can be listed in the household size. And then when it asks about how many kids you have, it does not include parents, but of all the children that you listed in the household size, how many will be in college at least half time for at least one term during the upcoming school year. So even if you're not sure where they're going to go or when they're going to go, if there's a chance they're going to be in college at least half time, you'll want to indicate that, yeah, you have 2, 1 or 2 or 3 in college. Here's where we kind of start to ask information about parents' income. It's parents' tax information, and literally the FAFSA acts as a cheat sheet of sorts, where it always refers back to the most recent tax year. So it will refer back to 2014. It will ask you questions about what was your adjusted gross income off your tax return. It'll give you the line item reference, the amount of tax liability you have. At this moment in time, I don't know anybody who has their tax return completed. You don't need to have your 2014 tax return completed. Use your 2013 as a guide, or ballpark the information. Use your W-2s or your year-to-date on your last pay stub, just to give a general idea. It sounds weird, but we would much rather you put ballpark information on here than absolutely correct information at this stage of the game. We can always adjust it later, and unless you're off by thousands of dollars, it's not going to affect the bottom line anyway. So just getting some information on here, needing those deadlines, and then being able to adjust it later is absolutely okay and recommended by everyone, yeah.
So then the numbers that they're or the adjusted.
The numbers that it asks for, there's a whole series of numbers. They will reference different areas. They'll reference adjusted gross income, which if you're filling out a 1040 is line 31. It will ask for parents' earnings, which will come off of a W-2 form. It'll ask for other information, but look at the line items. Use this as a reference to figure out exactly what they're asking for on there. The one thing that we just found out is the tax form has changed slightly. It has been, the line items have been the same for the last 2, 3, 4 years, but now for 2014, there's an additional item on the second page. And so the cheat sheet on here says, what was your tax liability? And we'll refer to line 56 on a 1040. But that same item on a 1040 2013 is line 55. So be just a little careful with that. We think that's the only one that has changed, but yeah. Sorry. Oh.
So it's, as you said, I got my 1099. Similarly, the last time we did a FAFSA, it said how much you have in your IRA. Gee, I only have the statement from September, but it's pretty close. Those estimates are acceptable?
Absolutely. Estimates, absolutely acceptable. Yeah. Yeah.
So my question is, we're allowed to go back and forth on this form. Does it take the information every time though, or is it waiting to finish?
So you can access this anytime, anywhere. PC, Mac, tablet, smartphone, smartwatch. No, maybe, I don't know. But until you submit, until you hit the submit button, it's just sitting there, waiting for you to either confirm the information or to go in and adjust it. Once you submit the information, then it gets processed sent to the schools. You can still go in and make changes, and all that does is just create a new FAFSA results to us. So sit on it, wait, double check the information, but then submit it. Don't again worry about these deadlines. Submit it. We can make the changes later on. Kind of new, again, it's been around for a couple years. There's an option that if you don't want to use your tax return as kind of a guide, you can use a tool called the data retrieval tool, which allows you to access the IRS database to pull in the information from there into the FAFSA, so you don't have to worry about which line items go where. The problem with the data retrieval tool is it's not available until early February. And you have to have filed your taxes electronically, and then you have to wait 3 weeks after you file your taxes electronically to use the data retrieval tool. Eventually, so the colleges for whom you estimate this information, and they ask you to update it, will ask you to use the DRT, but again, later on in the process, after April 15th, or just before you have to make a final decision, because we know that you cannot use that information. They will ask you to use this tool eventually, but it won't prevent them from sending out an award letter based on the information that you provided. And again, unless you're off by thousands of dollars, it's not going to affect the bottom line anyway. But the data retrieval tool you'll eventually be able to do that. You'll log into the FAFSA. You'll see this site that says, okay, I want to access the IRS database. You'll see these screens on here saying, plug in your information. Here's the information that we have for that name and social security number, type of tax return. The biggest thing, what we see, the biggest error with this, to transfer this information from the IRS database into the FAFSA, you literally have to check this box that says, transfer the information, and then on the right-hand side, click on that transfer now button. We see a lot of people who will click on the transfer now, but not click that box, and so we get an error message saying families access the DRT, but there was no data transfer. I think it needs to be fixed. I think if you get to this point, why would you not want to transfer the data? So it's just an extra step, and I think they're going to be working on that. But until that's fixed, make sure that you're not only checking that box, but then you're hitting the transfer now button, and then it's going to pop you back into the FAFSA, and you'll see this as, okay, this is the information, this is the adjusted gross income that we were asking for. This was transferred from the IRS. Period, end of story. You don't need to do anything else. That's what it is. You'll get to this page where it says, okay, we've gathered all this information, now we need to sign it, we need to submit it. It's going to ask for the students, all that will be pre-populated. Here's where it's going to ask for the student's PIN number and the parent's PIN number. It will first ask, how do you want to sign this form? If you've got a PIN, you'll say, well, I want to use a PIN. You don't have to use a PIN. You could still opt out of that and sign a signature page, mail the signature page into the federal student aid programs, wait for them to get that, match it up with your application, and then release the results to us. Who knows? Who knows how long that's going to take? So using a PIN, I think, is kind of a no-brainer, and that's where you'll put the pins, right here, and then you'll get this confirmation page. This will say, great, we have the information. We sent it off to these schools on here. There's a little bit more information about some of the schools, some consumer disclosure information. That arrow points to that feature that says, if you're filling out another FAFSA and want to just put the student information in there, transfer the parent data, and then start just with the student information. Lots of places that you can get help when you're in the middle of the FAFSA. Kind of that front page has so many different links on there, which are really pretty helpful. There's an online chat. You can call an 800 number if you want. You get information about some of the deadlines out there. You can, if you lose the worksheet you have tonight or want another one, you can download another FAFSA on the web worksheet. Lots of good ways to get more detailed information, just on the FAFSA site itself. Some of the, yeah, good, sir. Once you submit the FAFSA, you get this confirmation page that says you're good. So they have the data. It takes the federal student aid programs usually 48 to 72 hours to process this information and then to release it to the colleges. So 2-3 days. I see at certain times of the year now, if you're doing a FAFSA, it might be 24 hours. If it's March 1st, the busiest time for FAFSAs, it could be 48 to 72 hours, but it's pretty quick. You can list, again, we talked about this, but you can list up to 10 different colleges on there. If you need to list more, you can certainly add that later on, yeah. The question is, so after you submit the confirmation page, I think I have a slide here. Let me hold that question because I have a sense of timeline, what you should be doing. But again, the 10 colleges on there. In the world of financial aid, sometimes when we have kind of a thought that we want to make sure that how much we believe in it, we have I don't know if it's a philosophy or a mantra that says, there is no horse too dead to beat. So we will tell you over and over that absolutely it's okay to estimate the information. We can adjust it later on. At this point, at this stage of the game, it's so much more important to get this done than it is to get it done absolutely correctly. Divorced, separated, single parents, again, if that's the case, it's only the parent with whom the student lives. Although there might be some colleges that will then follow up and say, we need to have information about the other parent, non-custodial parent. Whether there's a court-ordered agreement that he or she is going to make some payments toward education or whatever reason. There are really just a handful of colleges that will do that. I mentioned that the FAFSA is more income-driven than anything else, and it is. I mean, statistically, everyone who filled out a FAFSA last year, only 4% of them had enough assets to start to affect the eligibility. And even then, the assets were not huge. But assets are still asked for on the application. But when it asks about assets, it really is trying to look at kind of cash on hand, liquid kind of stuff. So how much you might have in savings or stocks or other real estate other than the primary residence in 529 plan. So if you've got a savings plan that it's called a 529 plan, that's the tax code. Whoever owns, if you the parent own a 529 plan, that is your asset. You listed under your section. Even though a student's name could be on there as a beneficiary, it's not their asset. It's owned by the parent. Yeah.
child who you're applying.
You list all of your 529. So if you own 529 plans, the value of 5 of them is what you list on here. Yeah. Hold that thought. Was there another question? Yeah, so it's any real estate other than your primary residence, anything that you own. And the rule of thumb is, when it comes to real estate, is it's just kind of looking at the equity. So it's kind of the fair market value, or not even assessed value, because you know what's assessed at, what you think you can ask for. It's a rule of thumb is just what you think you might, if you were to sell it, you know, what would be your asking price minus anything that you owe against it. The difference is your equity, and that's what you would report if you have other real estate.
That's individual, or you have corporations and your shareholders, is that included in the asset?
Yeah, so if you have an asset, but you're not the only name on it, you know, it's owned by maybe a brother or a partner or something like that, it's only your share of it. So we see this a lot where, you know, there might be an asset for one reason, but there are 3 different names on there. 1/3 of it would be considered the parent asset. Unless 2 parents' names are on there, then it would be 2/3 of another person. But it's only your portion of that would be listed. The assets that are excluded would be the value of retirement accounts, the home equity that you might have, life insurance policies and annuities. So anything that you might have in any account, and again, the rule of thumb is if it's in like a retirement account, if there's a severe penalty for early withdrawal, then it's usually probably not considered an asset for FAFSA purposes. And the FAFSA form will be very specific when it comes to what it wants and what it does not want to be included as this. And I mentioned already that you're filling out one FAFSA per student that you have in college. Yay. I've gone through that a lot. I thought I had a slide here that talked a little bit about timeline. Here's what kind of happens. You fill out the FAFSA, within 24, 48, 72 hours, you get 2 emails. You get immediately, hey, we have your FAFSA, thank you, we'll let you know it's been processed and sent to the schools. And then you get another email that says it's been sent to the schools. At that moment in time, all the colleges at the same time that you listed in the school section get the FAFSA results. At that moment in time, check with the colleges for a couple things. 1, to make sure they have the results, and 2, what else is necessary. Almost every college up front, a couple things that they will do up front is tell you what their deadlines are, tell you what their federal school code is, like 4001706, and then tell you if there's anything else that might be required. So they'll tell you if you need to fill out the profile, or if you have something else that you want to tell us, they'll give you a way to tell us there's something else going on. The timeline is to meet whatever deadlines the colleges have, whether it's January 31st or March 1st or February 15th, just to get all the information into them. Some colleges will respond back to you on a rolling basis. You know, so we cannot make an offer of financial aid eligibility. We can't send an offer until and unless your student is admitted. But we hold that information, and as soon as they're admitted, you kind of in the best sense of the one-stop shopping concept. What a lot of colleges will do is, once they're admitted and we've got all the financial aid information that we need, we send the admit letter, we send the financial aid award letter, we send the other information about housing, just sometimes all in the same packet. This will come to you in a couple different ways too. It'll come to you either electronically with email, or a way to access something online at that college, or you'll get a paper form of the award letter. So what I see a lot of colleges doing, what we're doing, is sending it both ways, sending it by email, but also following up with a hard copy, so the families have that. Yeah. Yes, so we cannot, kind of by regulation, make a 4-year financial aid award letter. But unofficially, colleges will tell you, unless something changes dramatically in your life for the better, what you get freshman year, you'll get all 4 years. Unless was it the lottery a couple weeks ago, with that one winning ticket in Glen Ellen or something for $270 million. If you were the winner of that, then the college might come back to you and say, well, you might have to reduce your financial aid, we'd love to put your name on a building, that we have on campus. Maybe we should talk or endow a scholarship. But truly, circumstances have to change dramatically like that in order to reduce it, to not receive the same amount of financial aid funding all 4 years. On the flip side of that, if anything happens detrimentally, many colleges will increase financial aid sophomore, junior, or senior, or in the middle of freshman year. It's such a fluid process that anytime there's something else going on, let us know, because it might impact eligibility and we can make that change for you. Did you have a question? Okay, so, yeah. So on the confirmation page, in fact, let me see it. Yeah, so on the confirmation page of the FAFSA form itself, you'll see, where did it go? Kind of toward on the left-hand side, the blue arrow toward the bottom, that will tell you the eligibility information. That will literally list the expected family contribution and some verbiage about, based on this, we think you might be eligible for a federal Pell Grant or federal student loans. I wouldn't pay much attention to that. It's the college, when we send out the financial aid award letter, that will be your expected family contribution. That will be your out-of-pocket. We're scrambling at this time of year to, pardon me? Financial aid, yes. Yeah, so you won't know until you receive the financial aid offer from the college. But when you start to get these financial aid offers, it will be very detailed as to what the different types of financial aid are, where they're coming from, the dollar amounts, and what your out-of-pocket is going to be. It will tell you to go to Lake Forest College, it will cost you $8,000. Cosmetically, what you'll see from school to school are these offers might look very different, but substantively, they'll have the same information on there. They'll have the detail of grants and scholarships versus student loans versus work study versus out of pocket. It might look different, but you should be able to compare apples to apples as much as possible. There's a proposal for a common financial aid award letter that has legs, and I certainly think that probably within a couple of years, more than the few hundred colleges out there now that offer it will be offering it. A lot has to do with the software programs that we use and how we get that to work. But that will be nice. When we finally come to a common financial aid award letter, you'll see exactly at each of the different colleges what the same information is from school to school. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is, if you have an IRA or a KEO or 401B, 403C, the dollar amount that you contribute that year into that retirement account is considered untaxed income, basically. So the formula says, you have kids in college, you have a choice, as to whether you put your own money into your retirement or put it toward the kids. I mean, that's a judgment call that the federal, not me, the federal government, what that support is making. But the dollar amount that you're putting into a retirement account does count in the process, in the formula, but the value of the retirement account does not. So if you're contributing $4,000, you're listing $4,000. If you've got a value of $500,000, you list nothing. Yeah.
Where on the form does that 529 information go?
There's where on the form does the 529 information go? There's a question on the FAFSA that says, two questions. One says, how much do you have in cash, savings, and checking? I mean, cash, I don't know, maybe 20 bucks right now. Checking, who knows? It's depending on the time of the month. Have I paid my bills yet? I don't remember. It's not meant to get at money that is already earmarked for expenses. It really, in that section, cash, savings, and checking, again, one of those throwback questions, is money that you might have in a savings account that you're keeping there for later, for a rainy day. You're not going to touch it. But there's another question that asks about other investments. The other investments are the value of stocks you might own or the value of different accounts. What was the one you asked me? The 529. Yes, sorry. That's where you would list the 529 under other investments and not the cash savings and checking. Yes, so it asks other investments in real estate. And then there's another question that asks the value of a business. If you own a business, how much do you think the business is worth? But the business, and you'll see this when you click on the link to describe it more. If you have a business, but you have less than 100 employees, then you don't list your business. This is meant for people who have over 100 employees, as kind of a business out there. Don't list it if you have less than 100 employees in your business. Or if you're a self-business. If you're a CPA, you're doing taxes, well, that's, you're not really your own business. You can't value that. You can't sell yourself as maybe. You don't list it. You don't call it a business. No. And the FAFSA is very specific and very clear about that. Profile is the same. Yep. Correct. Yeah, back there. No, it's same PIN. So if you have a PIN, it's your PIN for life. So you can keep that, you can use that for any and all FAFSAs. If you applied for a PIN a year or 2 years ago and don't remember what it is, it's easy enough to log into the PIN site, request a duplicate. It's going to ask you some challenge questions, some security questions. What was your favorite color, or the name of your first pet, and if you answer that correctly, you'll get your PIN back. If you don't, you can reapply for the PIN too. So it's never really lost. It just takes a little bit of time to get it. The other thing I want to mention too is, going back to the timeline, is we're sending out the financial aid award letters, trying to get offers into your hands so you can ask us questions. So we can help you kind of decode the award letter to figure out what's what on there. A lot of schools have admitted student days where you can come back, to come back to campus, talk to other families, talk to other students, sit in a class again, talk to a financial aid person to make sure that this is the right fit for you. So we're doing everything in our power to get this information out to you early in the process, because come May 1st, if your son or daughter has applied for a regular decision, May 1 is one of those drop dead dates I talked about. It's called National Candidate Reply Date. That's when the student needs to accept our offers of admission and financial aid. After May 1, all bets are off. Colleges can start to rescind offers and reduce offers of financial aid. But before that, we just kind of wait. We make sure that we're answering all your questions so that we know that when you choose the school by May 1, it's a solid decision. Yeah. Yeah, the question is, if a child has not been admitted or not even applied for admission, does it ever hurt to say you're interested in financial aid? Usually not. Many colleges are what we call need blind admissions. It's just you're either admissible or you're not. It doesn't matter. But I do see that through the process, especially late in the process, that some colleges who have an overflow of applicants, and they might have 2 spots left in the class, and 4 applicants for it. 3 of them need thousands and thousands of financial aid dollars. One of them is going to pay the whole freight. Colleges may at that point say we can only afford to admit the student who can pay. But very rarely do I see that it ever is detrimental. On the flip side of that, I do see that if you don't answer yes to I'm interested in financial aid, that you might miss out on some information about deadlines. So absolutely always recommend the families do that right away. So another question here. Yeah.
So some methods are chat.
That's exactly right. The taxability of an asset doesn't matter. It's whatever the value is, that's what goes under the asset question. So, yeah. Yeah, so if they're not 18, you would say, no, I'm not. But then the next question will say, when you turn 18, do you want us to register? Do you want the FAFSA form to be the vehicle by which you register for selective service? So then you'd have to say yes to that. If they're a freshman and they're 17 years old, they get financial aid because regardless of that question. But sophomore year, if they haven't registered by then their financial aid would stop. So I tell families that, yeah, just answer yes to that, register me via the FAFSA. That way you don't have to do it online or go to the post office like we used to have to in the olden days. But it's easier just to answer that, but they do need to answer that. So, yeah, sir. You can still be allowed to register for selective service between the ages of 18 and 24. So if you forget, there's kind of this amnesty program that says, fine, but you need to register right now. The problem is that if they won't get financial aid until they register, so when they turn 18, if they haven't registered, the financial aid stops, and you can't start back up until they finish that process. So, yeah.
More to your personal house, you get to subtract that balance of your mortgage.
No, anything associated with your primary residence is excluded from this process. So your equity on it, your mortgage on it, your expenses, your tax, property taxes is excluded. But everything that's included with your other real estate, that is still included. So yeah, it's kind of all or nothing. I don't want to keep you any longer, but thank you so much for letting me share this information with you. I know I talked a lot, trying to get a lot of information to you, but thank you all very much. Again, you've got some absolute, I don't say this just because they're standing in the back and sitting up front, but wonderful, wonderful resources at both North and South. Take advantage of them, use their expertise, their guidance. They absolutely can answer a lot of questions for you. So thank you very much and good luck.
Something wasn't clear to me. Yes. Also at the same place. Yeah. Use either. Yes. Only the students will open the FAFSA. You need that for your signature. So the student's pen will get into the FAFSA, but your pen signs the FAFSA. So his or hers for the beginning of it, yours is for the end. Yeah. Absolutely. Every male student who turns 18 has to register with selective service. For the older men, yes, male students. So it's female. No, everything's online though. Yeah, so yeah.
At the same site.
At the same site. Yeah. So, you're putting the both. Both. Yeah, always doing both.
So both need to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go back and forth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The one thing I wasn't clear on was if you're a shareholder in the company, you know, like a fund,
Right.
is that is those the assets that are held in that company? Are those assets that you declare on the form?
Usually not.
So
No,
like for example, if I'm 100% shareholder of an ABC company that owns $500,000 worth of real estate, do I put that in?
You don't. No. You have income of being a shareholder. And that's on your tax return anyway. But you couldn't decide, hey, I think you should sell. I think you should sell that.
Right.
No, it's only if
So
you
it's personal in my name.
in your name. Right? You can be a shareholder, but that doesn't have ownership.
Thank you.
Two emails today. One said the map, something is due.
Right.
First.
Yeah.
Right? And then it's the issue service, which is that. So I take it that that's the same.
Not the same. You know that they use the FAFSA results on a certain date to just to consider the student. Doesn't guarantee anything. We're telling them February 15th. The calls will go to the conservative.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think February 15th.
Okay. So so that if I say service, 5 hours every year, that would be
I
service,
would,
right?
yes.
And then it should be. That would be right, but does it mean it's a cloud?
Anything is
Then that's good. Does that count as this or ours?
it depends on the if the interest is showing up on the student then it's the student. But if the interest is accruing on the student,
Right.
so usual custodial unless they're but then you'll
Okay, and I think. May 1st, everything in order to get the money and admission. So if you're waiting to see if it's going to give you a house.
it is kind of a hurry up. Hi.
Here, I'm going to be.
Okay.
I started, because I was January 1st, you can do, okay.
Okay.
Went back there, I forgot what there.
Okay.
So do we start a home with that?
No, you have to figure out what your password was, because that information is there. You need to access that information
You
yourself.
say no, but I forgot what that.
That's exactly right.
What I should have to do
Okay.
is the question.
Right.
Yeah. Probably.
And they might
No, I will ever do in my life. Well, and they also.
when you go back into it, you just change it. Easy enough to change. When you go back into the FAFSA, you find out what it is. Okay. Okay. So it's, that's exactly right. So it's just you. So I would do C. No. It's really easy. Right. Right. This is what you're talking about, right? Let her do it for you. It's easy enough. Or ask one of the counselors. Are you at North or South? You could, but if you're worried about it, it's the prompts are pretty easy. Yeah. I think you'll be okay. But I also don't want you to be nervous. You'll do this. You'll be able to do it in your sleep. No, it really isn't. Mhm. It's very straightforward. That's it. Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah. Yeah. So for you, right. That's it. Where's she going? Okay, so. Okay. Oh, good. Well, good. Well, see, for you, absolutely easy. Good.
Okay, so you need the phone number.
You need the pen.
Finish it up.
Access the FAFSA identification. You can change
Sign
to.
my password.
Yes. Good luck with that. All right.
All right, thank you.
You're
Sorry
welcome.
I took your time.
Hi. Okay.
Son. Trust. Do I have to add a value of the trust?
Yeah. Is it in his name?
He's the beneficiary of the trust.
Does-
It's a restricted trust.
Okay, so a couple things. Initially, yes, any kind of trust that the student is on would be the student asset. If it's restricted, you have to let the schools know what the restrictions are. So if it says that he can't access it until he's 25, you have to let the colleges know. They have to make a judgment call as to whether to exclude that.
And I have a trust. I'm the beneficiary of all restricted trusts.
Okay,
Do I do that?
you do include that on yours, yeah.
And my son had been receiving Social Security benefits since July.
Mhm.
I'm going to a 5 in state.
Okay.
Is that his?
No, it's
Or
yours.
it's the family?
It's the families.
Even though my name is not.
Well, you opened it.
I opened it.
You opened it, so you're the owner of it,
Okay.
even though he's the beneficiary.
He's the owner of it.
He's the owner, so it was opened in his name.
Like a representative.
Okay, so then it would be his asset. Yeah.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. My pleasure. Bye. Yeah. Yeah. I would do that right away, just to get it, just because once you get into the FAFSA, it's so much easier. Her PIN will access the FAFSA, so she needs that right anyway, and yours just. You're welcome. My pleasure.
Very helpful, thank you.
Good, thanks.
Quick question, just, it's obviously somewhat cumbersome going through all this. Is there an income level that you would say that it's just
Yeah.
process? I know circumstances can change and all
Right.
that, hopefully they don't.
Right.
But
We usually tell people that when all is said and done, if there's not a lot of huge assets or only one kid in college, then about 20% of the parent's income is going to be considered their family contribution or their index number. So if a family's income is $150,000, then it's probably likely that the school might say, oh, well, you can afford $30,000. Kind of ballpark. That is what is kind of a rule of thumb.
So 20%, you said the number?
20%, 20% is good.
So,
Yeah.
200,000, like 40,000.
Right. But a school that costs 60,000 will say, well, you still need 20.
Right.
So,
Okay, gotcha.
but a school that costs 30 will say,
So you start going 250 and 75.
Yeah.
75. So
That's exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
It's more income than anything else.
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Hi.
Thanks for coming out.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Right. Right. I would go to FAFSA.gov and log in and access that data. You don't have to do FAFSA.com anymore. All of your information is sitting in FAFSA.gov. Okay, so you'll be able to log into it. It's going to ask you for your identifying information. But once it does that, you'll be able to get into it. Right. Yeah.
AGI.
Yes. AGI. Yeah. Good for you. Yeah, good for you with this process.
This confusion was.
Yeah.
I paid $7 million for it.
78. Yeah. Now you'll know.
Yeah.
So we can tell others.
Thank
All right.
you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thanks. Yeah.
It's like Alexander Allen. You're an Alexander.
Most of the time, so maybe to get more than just the initial. So you get that many colleges, so you're able to see that you need, and to see that you need it.
Yes, thank you very much for the information. And if you ask me to check it again, I know. But you know what? I was in the reserves. You know, it was my visa. Yesterday in the reserves was on a condition visa. Guess what? A year afterwards, after we moved, there's one in acting my contract. You know what I mean? A lot of people, who was in the reserves, yeah. Thank you very much for the information.
Thanks, you guys. And now.
Good night.
It was informative, at least I didn't
Yes,
all my
good,
questions.
good.
Thank you. Thank you, girls, for staying so late.
Oh, actually, I have a question.
No. These counselors hanging out late. We have questions.
Oh, I just have one. So, regarding the business thing about listing business assets that my dad has, he has 2 small companies, and I'm not sure how many workers he employs, but I'm pretty sure both of them have under 100, but combined they may have more than 100.
It's each business.
Each business, okay.
Each business, yeah, so it's, if
Sounds
each
like
one of
that's
them,
clear.
Okay.
yeah, so if he's got 2 businesses, but there's like 99 people in each one, neither one of them,
Okay.
so,
Okay, great. Because I was like, I had that listed originally because I had it
Yeah.
almost all filled out.
yeah,
Okay, so that's
So-
good to.
good, good.
All right, thank you so much.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
but some of your schools are CSS profile schools.
Yeah.
They might.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's backstage.
Yeah.
And I don't know about those international schools you're looking at.
They take FAFSA. They do take FAFSA.
Oh.
Yeah, so, and it's not on you anywhere in your pockets. Back pocket.
Emily lives in the offering.
I've done that. That's the only reason I can't do it. Right there.
John, you don't have to close the meeting. Can I just shut it down?
Cool. Yeah, when you're playing up screen, everyone's cleared out, I'll shut the doors and then I'll grab the curtain. Oh, the camera doesn't.
Yeah, it does. I was noticing.
Are we gonna do a wash over it, or are we just leaving it like
We're
that?
leaving it.
I like it, but I want to do a wash.
What I like is that the gold is very bright, but the brimstone is very small, so
Yeah.
it gives it a texture look to it.
I'm just worried. I want to see it in white.